right, hello everyone. Whoever's coming in here, whoever's just coming in, welcome. We're gonna be starting in around 2 minutes. Yeah, so if there's any questions about anything. Oh, okay, David asked what grade level is this for? I'd say it would be a good good representation of freshman biology, I'd say. It can also be like if you're in middle school, that would be good. If you're in early high school, that would also help, I guess. If you're in elementary school, then you're really smart or try hard, but that's okay. Basically anyone almost. I'm gonna open the chat for until I start. So once I start, I'm going to turn it to only talk to me, basically. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our week 2 of biology class for Kid Teach Kid. If you're staying here, if you're staying here from public health, then welcome as well. If you're coming in here from without coming from public health, welcome as well. So if you are new to this class, basically we're going to be going over a lot of the biology curriculum over the span of 4 weeks. So last time we talked about biochemistry. This time we're going to be talking about human anatomy and physiology. Yes, this class is entirely free. Everything that Kid Teach Kid has to offer is free. Okay, so if you did not come to public health, we have 2 huge announcements for Kid Teach Kid. If you did and you have already heard about this, just hang tight. So the first announcement is the introduction of the point system. So what that means is if you're going to be a good student and help engage a lot with our assignments and our classes, then you can earn points for your engagement. And I think Rich sent out an email today along with a class reminder talking about more details about the classes. And then in order to earn the points, you just have to fill out a form. It takes like a few minutes. And then to use your points, there are a lot of ways you can use them. For example, you can join our special sessions. Our special sessions are basically held by some experienced members of our staff or some guest speakers, and we invite them to talk about their experiences in STEM. So for example, Rich will be talking about his experience at Math Counts Nationals. Isabella, Andy, and Rich will talk about MOP and JMO or USMO. And Silently Nats, I will talk about writing a book. I may also talk. We haven't figured out exactly which one. Someone asked, how does Kid Teach Kid get their profit? We're a nonprofit organization. Okay. And also beyond attending our special sessions, we will also be having a leaderboard for people with the highest amount of points. So, and then the top people with the highest amount of points will be featured and get a bunch of cool rewards and stuff. So that's something to be looking out for. Next big announcement is that we will be having our first annual Flash Math tournament, and this competition scope is national since basically I think we have like almost 1,000 people who have signed up for our classes, so from all across the country. So it will be a national level tournament, and it will be our first tournament, and we promise that we have not plagiarized any problems. We wrote them all ourselves. They're going to be around AMC 10 difficulty, and more details are going to be here. Okay, Chelsea asked, how do I gain your points? So check your email. Rich sent an email with all the details, and you just need to fill out a form in order to get your points. Okay, so now that we have those 2 announcements out of the way, we are going to be talking about the 7 human body systems. Sometimes you may hear only 6, sometimes 5, but this is the most comprehensive list of body systems. So on the very left, we have the Integumentary System, which you can see is literally just their skin, their hair, their nails. Okay. Next, we have the respiratory. Rich is not my brother. No. Okay, next we have the respiratory system, which you can see the lungs and the nasal cavity, etc. Next, we have the skeletal system, the muscular system, the digestive system, the circulatory system, also known as the cardiovascular system, and finally, we have the nervous system. Okay, so think of, there are 7 body systems and we only have 1 hour. So there's no way I will be able to go in depth for all 7 body systems in an hour. That would be like less than 10 minutes per body system. That was just not going to cut it. So I RNG'd, I put those in a random number generator, and I got these 3 systems that we're going to be covering today: cardiovascular, excretory, and muscular. Oh, why is the muscle dude hand missing? I have no idea. Okay. Cardiovascular, excretory, and wait, no, my bad. I think I wrote the wrong. It should be cardiovascular. Let me just fix this real quick. My bad. It should be cardiovascular, integumentary, and muscular. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, someone wants me to say them again. Okay, sure. So integumentary, respiratory, skeletal, muscular, digestive, circulatory / cardiovascular, and the last one is the nervous system. Although that one could also be the lymphatics. Actually, yeah, I think that one's referring to the lymphatic system. But I don't know why they didn't include nervous system in here. That's also a thing. But yeah, okay. So next we're going to be moving on to, because I can't cover all of the body systems, I don't want you guys to not be able to learn them. So here are some good resources to learn the rest of the body systems. So the best textbook, in my opinion, for anatomy and physiology is the one by Kenneth Saladin. It's probably It's probably the most complete one I've ever read. Another good one is Human Physiology by Vanders, even though this one doesn't cover some of the anatomy central ones like muscular and skeletal. And some good websites for if you're beginning and you're trying to just learn basic things would be innerbody.com to learn anatomy, and Wikipedia just to read for fun, basically. Okay, let me check Q&A real quick. Okay, so my book is not good for this anatomy and physiology. Sorry. All right, next we're going to be talking about the cardiovascular system. So if you don't know, cardiovascular system is basically comprising of your blood vessels and your heart. Blood vessels being arteries and veins, and cardiovascular system is synonymous with your circulatory system. So let's get started. So as I was saying earlier, I forgot about blood. Oh yeah, there's also blood is a major component. Blood vessels, blood, and the heart. And the functions of the cardiovascular system are transportation of oxygen, nutrients, and carbon dioxide. This is done by blood. So for oxygen, it's transported through red blood cells with a protein called hemoglobin. Basically, oxygen attaches to hemoglobin, and then the blood allows oxygen to circulate across the body. Nutrients are usually just traveled in the bloodstream, carbon dioxide as well, but carbon dioxide is in a very different form. You can learn more about that in the respiratory system. And hormones are also just traveling with the bloodstream. The next thing is protection. Protection because the blood contains white blood cells that cause immunity to certain pathogens. And regulation of pH, water levels, temperature, and hormones, etc. So pH just means the level of acidity / base alkalinity of the blood. Water levels by vasoconstriction or vasodilation, basically meaning constricting or dilating the blood vessels. Temperature and hormones, yeah, we'll talk about all of those. So the most important thing arguably the most important part of the cardiovascular system would be the heart. So obviously without your heart, you would die because it causes blood to flow all over your body. It causes the energy in order for circulation to occur. So let's just trace the path of blood flow in the heart. So the vena cava, you can see, try to find the vena cava in the diagram. You can see it's those like long tubes of blue. Those are the biggest veins. The one on top is the superior vena cava, and the one on the bottom is the inferior vena cava. All right, perfect. So next we have the right atrium. So the vena cava empties the blood into the right atrium. You can see in blue. And then it goes through the right atrium into the right ventricle. And in between those is something called the tricuspid valve. The reason it's called the tricuspid valve is because there are 3 cusps. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but there are 3 cusps. And then after it goes into the right ventricle, and by the way, anything that here on blue means that it's deoxygenated, meaning that there's no oxygen. So after it goes into the right ventricle, it goes through something called the pulmonary valve, and you can see the little black arrow pointing there, and then it goes up through the pulmonary valve into the right and left pulmonary arteries, which you can see in blue are there. They branch out a little bit. And then from those pulmonary arteries, they go to your lungs. And just a quick note real quick, artery means going away from the heart. Vein means going to the heart. So you can see that the blood is going away from the heart. So that's why they're going through what's called the pulmonary artery. So now that they're going to be at the lungs, by the way, just follow through whatever on the left side. So they're going to be at the lungs. By the way, this blood is still deoxygenated. At the lungs, they're going to get loaded with oxygen. The carbon dioxide is going to be released. So then that's why half of lungs will be red, meaning that there will be oxygen now. The blood is now oxygenated and it goes to the pulmonary veins. And remember, veins means coming to the heart. So you can see in here, you can see at the very back, there's like 4 small little segments, 2 on each side. Those are the pulmonary veins in red, and they empty into the left atrium. You can see the left atrium here. And notice that everything here is red. So after it goes into the left atrium, it will go down the mitral valve, which has 2 cusps, which is different from the tricuspid valve. And then it goes into the left ventricle, and the left ventricle will pump the blood through the aortic valve and into the aorta and throughout the rest of the body, basically. So that's basically the path of blood flow from the heart. One thing I want to stress is that you can kind of see that the muscle of the heart is kind of thinner on the side of the right atrium. And you may be thinking, why is the right atrium on the left? The reason is because the right atrium refers to the heart in the context of a person. So when you're looking onto it, everything will be flipped. So that's why the right atrium is actually on the left. So you may be wondering, why is the wall of the heart so much thinner on the right atrium compared to the right atrium and the right ventricle compared to the left atrium and the left ventricle? The reason behind this is the left ventricle requires a lot of force when pumping the blood into the aorta because it needs to get to the rest of the body. So that's why the walls are thicker, so it can generate more force. Okay, anyway, after it goes to the aorta, it's going to go to the arteries, then the arterioles. Arterioles are basically just smaller arteries. And then it'll diverge into things called capillaries, which are very, very small. Literally, they just have one cell surrounding them, one endoepithelial tissue. And this is where it's, the reason I have it purple is because there's a lot of mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. And then it's going to go to the venules, which are small veins, and then it'll go to the veins and then to the vena cava, which are, remember, these huge, the huge veins that feed into the right atrium, and this whole cycle starts again. Okay, Grace asked, is there somewhere I can find the slides? Yes, there will be on the class resources. Rich will upload them after class. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about this whole cycle of blood? This is probably the most important part. You need to have this basically drilled in your head. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Oh, let me check Q&A real quick. There's not really any important questions. Move on. So the conduction system, this is where you may not have been hearing about this, because I'm sure you probably heard about the whole this thing in school, but maybe your teacher didn't teach you about this. So have you ever wondered why your heart can just pump just continuously without you having to think about it? Well, the reason is they actually create their own electrical signals. And the electrical signals are created through various compounds like sodium influx, calcium influx, things like that. Those are really complicated. We're not going to get into that. But today I'm just going to talk about the conduction system of the heart and why it can generate its own pumps basically. So you can see here something called the sinoatrial node. The sinoatrial node emits these electrical signals once every, I forgot exactly like when, but it emits these frequent electrical signals. And these electrical signals travel down the heart to what is here. You can see it's called the atrioventricular node, also known as the AV node. So the function of the AV node is to delay the conduction by around 0.1 seconds. The reason is because the AV node can also, the AV node doesn't want the heart to be beating in an irregular pattern. This may be kind of like confusing to you, but basically just remember the reason why it delays it is because it doesn't want the heart to be beating irregularly. Okay, let me check Q&A. Okay, no, Rich is not in jail. All right, then we have the atrioventricular bundle. This is also known as the bundle of His. Here you can see it, I have it on the left. It says His, but it's pronounced as His. This basically allows the conduction to branch off into right and left bundle branches. So the right bundle branch will help innervate the right part of the heart, and the left will innervate the left part of the heart. So as it goes down, it will branch into little fibers. These little fibers are called Purkinje fibers. So these fibers carry the transmission and the signal all the way to the heart walls where the heart can get innervated and then it can start pumping. So yeah, that was a quick overview of the conduction system in the heart. So let me know if you have any questions about this. This part is a little complicated. Yeah. Let me check Q&A real quick. Sorry, where can we find these slides again? Also, is there, yes. So the thing is, on the Kid Teach Kid website, there's a little page called question submission. You can just submit your questions through there and then I'll be able to see it. And where can you find these slides again? They should just be on the, they're not uploaded yet, but they will be by the end of class. Purkinje, it's, yeah, Purkinje. Emma, okay. All right, next we will talk about systole. I just wanted to talk about these terms because they come up a lot. Also, I'm gonna open the chat because y'all have been on good behavior. Okay, so systole means contraction and diastole means relaxation. Yeah, just want to let you know about that. Okay, next we have the electrocardiogram. You guys probably have seen this diagram at least somewhere before, maybe in a doctor's office or when you're reading a book and you see the electrocardiogram going crazy and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about any crazy ECGs right now. I'm just going to talk about the normal ECG. So you can see the P wave right here. P wave means that atrial systole. And remember, systole means contraction. So the atria are contracting, which is what causes this little bump with the P wave. Oh my God, stop spamming, guys. If you're gonna spam, I'm gonna close it again. Okay, and then next we have the QRS complex. So this is huge. And remember, the atria are very small compared to the ventricles. So as you can tell, the QRS complex is going to be the ventricular systole. So ventricular contraction is the QRS complex. That's why it's so huge, because ventricles are so powerful. Next, we have the T wave. And remember how powerful the ventricles are, that even when they're relaxing, they have like a wave going on. So this is caused by ventricular diastole, which is when it is relaxing. So yeah, keep in mind that each one of these little boxes represents 0.2 seconds, if I remember correctly. I'm closing the chat. Okay, yeah, let me know if you have any questions. So the QRS spike part is heartbeat, basically. Basically, yeah, you're right, Chloe. All right, let me check Q&A. Why is it called Purkinje? I have no idea. I think it was just like someone, the guy who discovered it was probably like named Purkinje or something. That's like my best bet, but I'm honestly not sure. All right, the cardiac cycle is very complicated. As I was saying, when I rolled the cardiac cycle, like the cardiovascular system, I was thinking to myself like, oh my God, this is probably the hardest system, but it's very interesting, which is why I decided to go with it. So let's look at this diagram that we have here. On the x-axis, you can see the time of a heartbeat, and on the y-axis, you can see the pressure in millimeters of mercury. So let's look at the very right side where we see the phases of the cardiac cycle. We have atrial contraction. Well, actually, you know what? This might be a little hard to explain since there's so many components. So I think the best thing to do right now is for you to just look at it for a little bit and just make sure you see the labels of each part and let me know if there's a question and I will try to explain it the best that I can. So you can see this blue line is represents the pressure of the left atrium. The red line represents the pressure of the left ventricle, and the black line represents the pressure of the aorta. So at the beginning of a heartbeat, the blood flows into the atrium. So that's why there's a little bit of a bump on the blue line. That's because it's opening and it's having more pressure because of the blood. So as the atrial AV valve means tricuspid and mitral basically. As the AV valve closes, that's when all the blood goes into the ventricle. Because remember, the AV valves are you can see they are the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve. Then the ventricle will get all this blood filling against it, which is why you see this huge rise in ventricular pressure. And then once it squeezes all the blood into the aorta, then the pressure automatically falls down. Oops. And then that's why, yeah, basically that's it. But there's a lot more important things, but I'm just gonna give you guys an overview. Okay, any questions about this at all? Okay, I'm gonna move on to blood and blood vessels, and then that will be almost the end of our cardiovascular. And I would be on time. So blood and blood vessels, red blood cells are erythrocytes. They basically make your blood, y'all know about red blood cells, I'm sure you do. Platelets are thrombocytes. Basically, they help with blood clotting. And then there's white blood cells to help fight infections. And one important thing about red blood cells is they have hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen, because oxygen is not soluble in water. And most of your blood actually is just water. So your blood can't just carry oxygen around wherever it goes. It needs to bind to the hemoglobin onto the red blood cells in order for it to be transported. All right, here I just listed a bunch of white blood cells because I thought y'all might find it interesting. Yeah. Okay, blood vessels. Here I have a diagram of an artery and a vein. You can see that the arterial walls are much thicker. The reason behind this is blood is getting pumped into the arteries. So that's why there's a lot more pressure in the arteries, which is why in order to prevent the arteries from leaking, there needs to be a thick wall. So that's why they're thick. And you can see that there's a layer of muscle in the arterial wall, and that just helps allow to compensate for the high pressure in the arteries. And arterioles are just basically smaller arteries, and veins and venules, arteries carry oxygenated blood except for the pulmonary artery. You can see here, the pulmonary artery is clearly blue, and veins carry deoxygenated blood except for the pulmonary vein. You can see here, the pulmonary vein is clearly red. That's just one thing I wanted you to keep in mind. And the structure of blood vessels are the tunica externa on the outside, the tunica media on the inside, and the tunica intima on the very inside is the tunica intima. So one thing to keep in mind is that the tunica media is very thick in arteries, as I was saying. So Sherry asked, does blood cells only carry oxygen? No, blood cells don't only carry oxygen. It's also possible for blood cells to carry carbon dioxide in some certain circumstances, although that's not the main way that carbon dioxide is carried. So if you want to learn more about carbon dioxide transport, I suggest you to go look into the respiratory system. Max asked, what is the function of blood plasma? So blood plasma just basically helps blood be more like liquidy, because if you're not going to have plasma, you're just going to have like random, just these blood cells going everywhere, and it's hard to transport it. So we have blood plasma to help with the viscosity of the blood and allow it to travel like in easier ways. Okay, next we're going to move on to the diseases of the cardiovascular system. Atherosclerosis. I think, I'm not completely sure, but I think atherosclerosis is one of the most common diseases in the US. And this is basically when you have thickening of the arteries, either because there's too much fat accumulating in the artery walls, so this is also a side effect of diabetes, or you can just have hardening of the artery walls, and this is called arteriosclerosis. So a lot of the times, if you have thickening of the artery walls and you have like a plaque there and the plaque ruptures, that can cause a heart attack. So atherosclerosis is not great, but it's not extremely like virulent, if you know what I mean. It's not too bad, but once you have too much plaque, then it can cause heart attacks, which obviously we all know are pretty much deadly. So next we have hypertension, which is high blood pressure. I think it was blood pressure above 140/90. I think. I forgot to check, but I think it's around that range. And hypotension is just low blood pressure. The reason for hypertension could be atherosclerosis. If you think about it, if your arteries are narrowing, then the same amount of blood has to travel through the arteries that are smaller. So obviously there will be more pressure on the arterial walls, causing higher blood pressure. So yeah, hypotension can be caused by a lot of different things as well, such as dilating of the artery walls. Okay, myocardial infarction is the scientific way of saying a heart attack. So what that happens, it can be the result of a plaque bursting that blocks blood flow at a certain artery and prevents it from getting to the heart. Another way is, a possibly fatal way, is if there is blockage of the coronary arteries, which means the arteries of the heart. So yeah. Stroke is lack of blood flow to the brain. This could possibly be caused by an embolism, which means like a blood clot that's been migrating throughout your body. And it could get like dislodged in a certain artery, and that could prevent blood flow from getting to your brain. Okay, let me check for any questions so far. How can shock heart attacks cause death? Okay, that's a great question. So think about it. Let's think about what happens if we have the blockage of the coronary artery. So if we have blockage of the coronary artery, there won't be enough blood to supply the heart. So if there's not enough blood to supply the heart won't be able to work. And if the heart won't be able to work, then your blood basically won't flow, and then you won't have like nutrient transport. Transport of nutrients is the main thing. You won't be able to transport oxygen to your various organs and take out carbon dioxide. So that's why it can cause death. What do T cells and B cells do respectively? Okay, so this is more of an immune system question, but T cells, B cells create antibodies. T cells are basically like the ones that go on and fight them. That's like a very vague answer, but that's like a broad answer. How do people survive heart attacks? So there are a lot of like, if they get like timely treatment and the doctor is able to dislodge whatever is blocking the artery in a timely manner, then they could possibly survive the heart attack. But a lot of the times people don't survive it, unfortunately. What happens in cardiac arrest? That's basically just when your heart just doesn't work anymore. Like your heart just stops beating, which is like similar to a heart attack. Yeah, I think cardiac arrest is usually denoted, like said as a symptom instead of like an actual disease. So I think, okay. Muscular system. Now we're gonna move on. I think we're kind of low on time, so I'm gonna have to like talk about muscular system a little bit faster. But thankfully, muscular system and integumentary system have nowhere near the amount of information that the cardiovascular system has. So yeah, okay. Here's just some pictures of the muscles of the body. Do not feel obligated to learn these unless you're trying to do Scioli. Oh, by the way, shout out to all my Scioli kids who are here, who went to my summer outreach meeting. Okay, anyway, I think the main ones you need to know are the biceps. I think most people know that. The triceps, which are on the back of your arm. Then there is the quadriceps is not actually a muscle. It's a group of muscles. It's like, wait, oh yeah, it's the biceps femoris, the vastus intermedialis, vastus medialis, and vastus, the outside one, I forgot, whatever. But yeah, those are some important muscles to know. And then there's also the pectoralis major, which are your chest muscles. And then there is the latissimus dorsi, which is your back muscles. And then there are muscles like the deltoids, which is like your, well, the deltoids are the shoulder muscles, and then there's the abdominal muscles, also known as the abs. Okay. All right, types of muscle. So just go ahead and look at this graph real quick. I'll talk about it a little bit. So skeletal muscles are the only ones that you can control. You cannot control your smooth muscles or your cardiac muscles. For example, smooth muscles would be the ones in your stomach or your intestine or your esophagus that are moving. Fine, fine, I'll give you guys chat back for a few minutes if you are not going to spam. Okay. So skeletal is smooth. For example, you can't control your esophagus from moving food down. You can't control your stomach from digesting. That's why they're involuntary. And of course you can't control your heart from beating. So that's why cardiac is also involuntary. Okay, I'm just going to talk about some more important ones. You can see that the skeletal muscles are like in like lines, and smooth muscles are more like tapered, and the cardiac muscle is more branched. So yeah. Oh my God, are y'all kidding me? So you're gonna ask for the chat back and then just start spamming. I don't think this is a great idea. Okay, but anyway, let's move on to the structure of a skeletal muscle. Yeah, you can just go ahead and look at this. Basically, the epimysium is the very outer layer, and then the perimysium is the inner outer layer, if that makes sense. And then these bundles of huge muscles are called fascicles. And then the bundles of individual muscle fibers on the outside are called the epimysium. And then inside the muscle fiber, it doesn't show it in this diagram, but inside the muscle fiber, you have something called a myofibril. Inside the myofibril, you have various myofilaments. So let's take a deeper look at the microstructure of a muscle. At first glance, you might be thinking, what the heck? What is this? So believe it or not, these are actually like the most microscopic of a muscle. You can almost compare them to a muscle cell, but they're like smaller than a cell. They're like the structure of a muscular cell. So let's look at the bottom part of this. The blue lines are a protein called actin, and the red lines or the red bundle thing is something called myosin. So in order for your muscles to contract, you can see those little bumps on the myosin. Those bumps, they attach to the actin. So what that means is they connect to the blue line, and then whenever it needs to move, it contracts. The little bumps contract. So then the lines move in. The actin lines move in. So then that causes the shortening of the sarcomere. And by the way, this entire thing is called the sarcomere. I'm going to talk more about that in later called the sliding filament model. But just wanted to show you guys that you have the M line, which is the middle of all the myosins. And just know that myosin is basically what causes movement. And whenever the little angle thing, the little bump on the myosin attaches to the actin, that's called a cross bridge. And cross bridges are the fundamental reason behind movement. So yeah. Okay. Let me check the chat for any questions and the Q&A for any questions. How does your muscle regenerate after a muscle tear? That is a great idea. Great question, not a great idea. But basically, in your muscle, there are these cells called satellite cells that can regenerate into muscle cells. So yeah, that's just a quick question. These satellite cells help with muscle regeneration. So your muscle actually has specialized cells to help whenever your muscle gets torn. Okay, and that actually brings me to a great point. Muscles cannot divide. Muscle cells are not like your normal immune cells or your epithelial cells. They can't undergo mitosis. So they literally just elongate. And whenever they elongate to a certain extent, they break, and that's when they snap basically. And I don't really know how to explain it, but they just elongate, they can't divide. Okay, someone asked, what does bone marrow do? Okay, that is a good question to investigate in the skeletal system, but I'll go ahead and give you a quick overview. So there are two types of bone marrow, red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. So red bone marrow contains all the hematopoietic stem cells. What that means is it contains all the cells needed to generate the rest of the cells in your body. It's also the source of generation for red blood cells. And on the other hand, we have yellow bone marrow. And yellow bone marrow, it's basically just fat. Yeah. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. If you want to learn more about bone marrow, feel free to look into skeletal system. Okay, I'm going to move on to muscle contraction. This part is a little bit complicated, so bear with me, okay? So I'm going to start from the very top. Your nerve ending, you can see over here in the yellow, your nerve ending gets a signal to release the neurotransmitters in the nerve ending, and the neurotransmitters are called, well, the neurotransmitter that controls muscle contraction are called acetylcholine. You probably have heard of that before, but basically these acetylcholine molecules will bind to the acetylcholine receptors on the bottom part. And once they bind to the acetylcholine receptors on the bottom part, it causes an influx of calcium to depolarize the sarcomeres, basically. And that whenever it depolarizes the sarcomeres, it causes the calcium to also bind to these cells that are preventing the actin and myosin from like cross-bridging together. So once that, like those things that prevent the cross bridges from forming, once those are out of the way, then see here, the little myosin heads can bind to the actin, and this is when we have something called the sliding filament model. So let's start at step 1. The myosin can bind to the actin, and then it basically does, like, I'm not going to go super in detail, but it causes a release of energy whenever it can move forward. So it bends and then it slides the actin forward. So once a bunch of these are doing it together, then there's a lot of myosin sliding the actin forward. And once the actin is getting slid forward, then that's when your muscle can contract. Hopefully that makes a little bit sense. I know a little bit more sense. I know it can be kind of complicated. So let me know if you have any questions. And don't be like getting mad at each other in the chat. This is a friendly conversation here. Okay, I don't see any questions. So wait, yeah, I don't see any questions. So I'm gonna move on. If you want to learn more about the sliding filament model, if I have time at the end, I will come back to it. Okay, so next we have muscular diseases. Muscular dystrophy is very, you probably have heard of that before too. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know. Okay, so muscular dystrophy is purely genetic. There is a gene called the DMD gene, and the DMD gene basically controls the creation of a protein called dystrophin. And dystrophin helps link the actin and myosin to the sarcomeres. So whenever basically your gene for for dystrophin is mutated. So dystrophin cannot do its job. Like, it's weird. Like, the structure is really weird and it can't do its job. So there's not a good like cohesion with the muscle. So that's why your muscle begins to like deteriorate. And what that causes is gradual muscular wasting, meaning that your muscles start like being unable to contract and can't walk, basically. So most people with muscular dystrophy need a wheelchair, and they can barely stand up because their muscles aren't able to contract since the structure is like messed up. And it's almost always in boys. The reason behind this is I think it was because most boys, the life expectancy of muscular dystrophy is very low. I think it's around 30 to 40. So most boys don't live to be able to, I can't remember. I can't remember exactly why. I think it's because I think it was also it was like something related to like sex or something. I can't remember, but just know it's almost always in boys. Next we have polio. And polio, unlike the other ones that we've talked about, polio is caused by a virus, so it's an infectious disease. And polio has almost been eradicated thanks to Bill Gates and his company thing. They've been doing a lot for polio, but basically it leads to paralysis, and it's usually a disease in third world countries like sub-Saharan African countries. Okay, I'm going to disable the chat because y'all are getting really rowdy. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, it's basically like eliminated in North America, but some countries in sub-Saharan Africa still have it, but the incidence of polio is very low. But basically what happens in polio, it leads to paralysis, meaning that the poliovirus basically attacks your neuromuscular junction, if I remember correctly, and then you can't receive the signals, leading to an inability to have this muscle contraction response. So that's why people with polio need, like, they have something called I think it was spastic paralysis. So yeah. Next we have myasthenia gravis. This may not be a disease that you've heard about, but basically it's an autoimmune disease that attacks the acetylcholine receptors at the neuromuscular junction. Okay, that was a mouthful, but basically what it does is you see these acetylcholine receptors here. Your body like starts attacking them because they think that they're a foreign entity. So obviously if your neuromuscular junction can't receive the acetylcholine, then it can't initiate this whole sliding filament model response, meaning that your muscles will be very weak in contraction. Someone asked, does frostbite relate to muscle contractions? I don't think so, because frostbite literally is just caused by muscle, like it's caused by like blood flow being impeded because it's too cold. Okay, why do some diseases appear suddenly, like polio in the 19-something and COVID? Okay. There's actually a lot of hypotheses for this. It's because sometimes viruses are mutated from a previous, there are these, okay, similar to how you can classify like animals, bacteria, etc. You can classify viruses into various like families. So sometimes there will just be random mutations within a family, which causes like a new set of genetic material for viruses. So that's similar to what happened for COVID. And I would assume something like that happened for polio as well. So hopefully that helps you answer your question. Okay, so next we have tetanus. Tetanus is caused by a bacteria caused by Clostridium tetani, to be exact. It starts by impeding your facial muscles. So first you're not able to move your jaw, and then people who have tetanus, they have like this really creepy smile because their facial muscles are paralyzed. So they're like, their face is constantly in this really like terrifying smile. I can't remember the exact name of the smile, but it actually has a name, believe it or not. So yeah, that's just something interesting about tetanus. And tetanus is caused by like this bacteria in rust. And if you like accidentally step on a rust or something, it can infect you with tetanus. Okay, let me see. What about muscle cancers? That is a good question. However, I didn't really cover that. But muscle cancers, I don't really know if that's like a real like threat to humanity, because if you remember, as I said earlier, muscles can't really do mitosis. So, and cancers, the whole like premise for cancer is that a cell is dividing too rapidly. So I don't think that like is like will be too much of an issue for people. So that's why I didn't really include it. Okay. Next, we will move on to our final system known as the integumentary system. And I feel like in normal classrooms or in normal anatomy courses, the integumentary system is like really neglected, which is why I was pretty happy that I actually rolled this system, because it's actually kind of interesting. And yeah, so let's get started. So first of all, what exactly does the integumentary system have? So the three main components of the integumentary system are the skin, the hair, and the nails. So it's not as interesting as cardiovascular system, I will give you that, but it's still pretty interesting. So let's look at these diagrams that I have here. On the left, I have the diagram of the skin. You can see the very top is the epidermis. The middle main portion of the skin is called the dermis, and the bottom is called the subcutaneous layer, also known as the hypodermis. And notice that the majority of your skin is the dermis. So yeah, okay. Now on the right, I have a diagram of the hair. You can see that the hair root lies in the dermis and sometimes goes down to the hypodermis. And by the way, I'm going to be going over the structure of the hair and the skin in later slides, but I just wanted to let you see. So for example, here you can see there are muscles in the skin, the erector pili muscle, there are sweat glands, there are sebaceous glands, there are blood vessels, nerve endings, receptors. There are a lot of things in the skin, so we're going to be going over a lot of them. Okay, so on the left, I have the structure of the epidermis. And whenever you hear epi in anatomy, you want to think above, like epidermis, or epicardium is the outside layer of the heart. So just wanted to give you guys a few examples of what epi means. So let's look at the 5 different layers of the epidermis. On the very bottom, we have the stratum basale. This is the layer that you can actually divide. This is the layer that actually divides and moves the cells up to the very top. So this layer of the cell is still living. Next, we have the stratum spinosum, in which these cells from the basal, they're not dividing anymore, but they're still like, they're highly interconnected, and some of them begin to lose their nuclei already. And these are called keratinocytes, by the way. And then next we go up to the stratum granulosum. In this stratum, the most important thing to remember is that there are something called keratohyalin granules. And these granules are, they're like a stage, I guess, it's like a stage of this whole like keratinocyte dying process. So these granules can be stained very darkly in microscopes. So whenever you see like a histogram, or no, not history, like a histology sample of the skin, the section that is stained very dark will be the stratum granulosum. And then moving up to the stratum lucidum, you can see that this layer is clear. Like there's no nuclei in them. Instead, they're filled with a lipid called alliodin. And this stratum lucidum is only present in thick skin. So thick skin would be the skin of your hands, your feet, but it would not be, for example, skin of your arms or skin of your face. Those would not have a stratum lucidum in them. And the very top layer is the stratum corneum, and every single keratinocyte in this stratum corneum is dead. They have lost all their nuclei and sometimes they shed. Okay, Yuming asked, at what time will the AMC competition be? Do you mean this flash math competition? This one, I think we're going to be holding it next week. So, and Rich is sending out an email today. So just keep on the lookout for that. All right, where were we? We were here. Okay. And on the other side, I have a picture of the dermis. And if you recall, the dermis is the most thick layer of the skin. So the upper 1/3 of the dermis is called the papillary layer. This layer contains the little ridges that you can see. And the reason for these ridges is because they want, the skin needs to have a better adhesion between the dermis and the epidermis. So these ridges have greater surface area, allowing better adhesion. So yeah, that's that. And then at the bottom, there's the reticular layer. This layer is very elastic, it has collagen as well, elastin, and basically all the hairs originate from the reticular layer. Okay, by the way, if anyone has any questions or if I'm going at a certain, like too fast or too slow, just let me know and then I will adjust. Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'm just gonna move on. All right, so here are the functions of the skin. These are just a few. I'm sure there are other ones, but these are the most important ones. So protection from trauma and microorganisms. The skin is often termed as the first line of defense. What that means is no matter what the pathogen is, it can defend your body from it. So for example, if someone is like, if you touched like a table infected with some bacteria, but the skin prevents the bacteria from going directly into your body. You can always wash your hands and wash it off. So that's why it causes protection from microorganisms. And if you get like a minor scratch, your skin can also protect you from trauma. Okay. Next, we have temperature regulation. As you can see in these diagrams, you can see a lot of blood vessels. So whenever your body is too hot, then these blood vessels will dilate, and when they dilate, they will release a lot of heat to the environment, so to help cool your body down. And also when your body is too cold, it will constrict so that less heat is released to the environment. So that's one way it does temperature regulation. Another way is by sweating. So you can see here we have a sweat gland, and a sweat gland causes the release of water or sweat whenever your skin needs to cool down. Okay, where were we? Here, okay, oops, function, okay. Excretion, oh, that similarly goes with the sweat thing. Sensory reception, you can see here in the skin diagram, we have a lot of little receptors, such as the touch receptor. There are receptors called the Pacinian corpuscle, Meissner corpuscle, tactile discs. There's a lot of them. We're not going to go into all of them, but if you would want to learn more about them, feel free to read about them in an anatomy textbook. Okay, let me check the questions. He isn't lost through your head, right? Actually, the reason, okay, this might be on a tangent, but I think it's pretty interesting. So, okay, so the reason why a lot of people think we have a hair is because hair can protect the head from excreting too much, like it can protect the head from getting too cold. That's why the rest of our body rarely doesn't have that much body hair, but our head has a lot of body hair, has a lot of hair, so that we can help conserve the heat instead of losing it all. Where is melanin in all this? I will be talking about in just a minute. Why do glands secrete more oil during puberty? It's just because of hormonal imbalances. Hormonal imbalances causes your sebaceous glands, which secrete oil, to be too overactive. Okay, Chelsea asked, what are the 7 body systems again? Let me name them. Okay, here. So integumentary, respiratory, skeletal, muscular, digestive, circulatory, and this one is lymphatic, but another one would be nervous system. Hopefully that helps you. Okay, where were we? Here. So now we're going to talk about melanin. Someone asked that. Oh, reproductive, a lot of the times reproductive is like included inside the endocrine system. Oh wait, was there no endocrine system in here? Oh yeah, there's no endocrine system in here. I don't know what this picture. Okay, well, sorry. Endocrine system is another system, and often reproductive is included in there. All right. And for Kevin, who's asking me to review everything, I'm pretty sure this meeting is recorded, and also the slides will be shown on the Kid Teach Kids. You can always just, after class, you can always just look back on this recording. Okay, we need to hurry up because we're running short on time. Okay, so skin color, melanocytes basically are the ones that secrete melanin, and melanin causes your skin to have a certain color. So there are 2 types of melanin. Oh wait, actually, before we get into that, one thing I want to stress is that melanocyte count is pretty much similar across everyone. Like every single person has pretty much the same amount of melanocytes. But what differs between a person to person is the amount of melanin. So there can be less melanin in someone who is a very pale skin color versus someone who has a more darker skin color. And another reason behind the difference between pale and dark skin color is the relative distribution of these 2 different types of melanin shown here. So pheomelanin is more red-orangish and eumelanin is more brownish. So in a more pale skin color person, there will be more pheomelanin compared to eumelanin. Meanwhile, in a more dark skinned person, there will be more eumelanin compared to pheomelanin. So the reason why lighter skinned people are more prone to skin cancer is because pheomelanin is not as good as eumelanin at absorbing UV rays. So since they have less eumelanin and more pheomelanin, they're not as good as protecting the skin from DNA damage. Meanwhile, those who are darker skinned have less of a risk of getting skin cancer. Okay, the reason behind this is those who have darker skin color tend to be natively from places near the equator. And those areas have a lot of sunlight exposure, so they have been adapted to have more eumelanin to protect themselves from too much UV exposure, to protect themselves from skin cancer. I think that's actually really cool in my opinion. Okay, let me see. There aren't really that many questions right now, so I will just keep going. Okay, don't worry too much about this whole melanocortin thing. That's more advanced, but of course you can learn into that. Okay, there are 2 other pigments that help your skin create its color, hemoglobin and keratin, but the main one is still going to be melanin. And of course there are abnormal skin colors. For example, you can see some people, if they have not enough oxygen flow, then they could have cyanosis, in which their skin turns greenish or bluish. Kevin is asking me, how do you find the totient of a number? If you enrolled in the Flash Math class, you should be able to find recordings of me giving my number theory class in the Kid Teach Kid website. Okay, erythema is red, meaning that there's too much blood flow. So for example, if someone is blushing, then they could have erythema. Jaundice is caused by like liver abnormalities and bile abnormalities causing yellowing of the skin. And bronzing is when the skin is red. So my bad. Bronzing is when the skin is bronze. This is caused by Addison disease. And pallor is caused by lack of blood flow to a certain part of the skin, causing it to be white. So for example, if you're really scared, that could induce a state of pallor. Albinism is also caused by white, but this is not caused by blood flow issues. It's actually caused by genetic issues, a genetic abnormality of the tyrosinase enzyme, not allowing the body to produce melanin. Okay, finally, we have hematoma, which is basically a bruise. Tao asked, will there be another class after this? Yes, you can check the schedule on the website. Okay. Next, I will have to be speeding through these since I don't have that much time left. So hair, there are 3 types of hair. You can see this here. Just know lanugo, vellus, and terminal, but you just want you to know the hair on your head is terminal hair, and the soft hairs on your body is vellus hair. And there's 3 growth phases: anagen, catagen, and telogen, but I won't really have time to go into them. But just know that most of the time, the hair is in anagen phase. And telogen is basically when the hair falls off, and catagen is like when there's like a little transition between them. Okay, let me go into Q&A again. Albinism, yes, albinism is actually the inspiration for albino. Why is it that after you exercise, your face and skin turns redder? That is a great question. So when you're exercising, you have your body builds up a lot of heat. And if you remember from when I was talking about the functions of the skin, one of the functions is to release heat. So by releasing heat, it will dilate. The blood vessels in your skin will dilate, causing more blood flow, and that's why your face and skin turns redder. Why do some people really want to be tan, like they would always go outside? I don't know. That's just like someone's personal preference, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna hurry up for the rest of these. So the glands, the sebaceous gland secretes oil to help lubricate your skin and waterproof it. Sudoriferous secretes sweat for excretion and temperature regulation. And there are 2 different types of sweat glands, eccrine and apocrine. Eccrine is found all over your body, basically, and apocrine is found only in places like your armpit and your groin. Yeah. Okay, nails. Nails, the 3 most important part to know about your nails is the nail matrix, in which the cells are actively dividing, and the lumula, that's where the cells are replacing each other the fastest. And then there is the epimetrium, which is the cuticle, which you can see on your nail is like the transition from the skin part to your nail part. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So burns. This is very important because there's like a few questions on the homework that talk about burns, but basically on the right, you can see the diagram of a person. The chest accounts for 18% of the skin area, and you can see each part of this. Like, for example, the front head represents 4.5. So this is just a good way to see burn area, to estimate burn area. Okay, where do you find the homework? It will be on the Kid Teach Kid website under class resources, I believe, but it's not up yet. It will be up later tonight. Okay, and then the different types of burns, you can just go ahead and read it, but 2nd degree burn, no, it's not required, but if you do your homework, you'll get points. 2nd degree burn is caused by burning through part of your dermis, and you'll get blisters. 3rd degree burn, you won't feel anything because your nerve endings and your dermis are all severed. Okay, all right, next we have a few diseases. Honestly, these diseases are not that important, so I'm just not gonna go over them. Finally, we have a Q&A. If you have any questions, ask them right now. I will answer them before the class is over. Kevin keeps asking me to do substitution to find the antiderivative. It's not a math class, I'm sorry. We do have like a flash math series in our class where I did talk about a lot of stuff, so you can go on that. Why do some old people have spots on the skin? Good question. That's something called an age spot. It's caused by accumulation of melanin in that certain area. What is the next class? Next class is going to be about plant anatomy, even though I'm not entirely sure if I will follow through with that since I suck at plant anatomy, but I will let you guys know. What do sebaceous glands secrete? Oil to help lubricate and waterproof your skin. Yes, this is the last class today. Okay, someone asked what kind of prizes are there for points. Basically, we have, using points, you can attend our special sessions. It's kind of like an unlock thing. Where you have enough, you can attend our special sessions. And here are some examples of special sessions. Here. And then you can also have, we also have a leaderboard with prizes like getting featured, getting a book, etc. Things like that. Okay, let me check Q&A real quick. Where do I find the class slides? Yes, okay, so I'm so sorry. I don't think the class slides are published on the website yet, but disease, oh, I'm so sorry, I will stay on the disease slide. Rich will publish them tonight, if not by tomorrow at the latest. And you're asking for my email address. Just to contact me, all you have to do is go to the Kid Teach Kid website, and there's like a little drop down that says class question submission. So just gotta submit your question through there, and then I'll answer your question. Which tab can we find it in? Actually, I don't know. I think Rich took it down for some reason, but it will be up again by today. What causes warts? Warts, warts is like an accumulation of melanin as well, but it's like, oh yeah, warts can be caused by a lot of things. One of them being viruses. So for example, the human papillomavirus, as you can see here, causes the warts. Can you go over dehydration synthesis? That was something we talked about last class, so you can always check the recording for that on the website. Why do calluses form? Good question. So calluses form when there is too much activity in the stratum basale. So if you remember what the stratum basale is, let me find it here. The stratum basale is the lower one, and there are too many, it's dividing too rapidly, causing the stratum corneum to be too thick, which is what causes calluses. Okay, what are scabies? Scabies is a disease of where the mites, the Sarcoptes scabiei mite, infects your skin, and then they burrow in and like start living there. Basically, it causes a lot of red spots to form. It's not a good thing. Also, is there any way to find last week's videos? As I was saying, I think Rich may have temporarily taken down the page because I can't really find it either, but I will text him in a few minutes and he should be able to put the page back on, and then you will be able to find last week's videos as well as all of these resources that I did today. Why is there an asterisk on some words? Okay, the reason behind the asterisk is because this page, I used it for one of my Scioli presentations, and I was just emphasizing the ones that come up a lot on tests. How do bruises form? Basically, bruises form when there is trauma to a certain part of your skin, and then there's like a lot of blood flow there, causing discoloration and a lot of like bad things. Silvery scale, yes, that's actually but a bad side effect of psoriasis. If you want to look more into that, go ahead and you can Google it always, but yeah, okay. Let me see, are there any other questions? Are we going to talk about COVID-19? Yes, we're going to talk about COVID-19 in my public health class on the very 4th week. So tune in for that if you're interested in learning about COVID-19. Can you show us the degrees of burn site? Of course, here. Any other questions? Hi, Ray. Sorry about like me talking so fast at the end. I just wanted to answer all of y'all's questions as soon as I saw them. It's not, okay, Emily, it's not called a 9 seconds rule. It's called the rule of nines. So whenever someone is like severely burned, the rule of nines is used to estimate the amount of surface area of their skin that is burned. So, for example, if someone's entire front arm is burned, then you know that approximately 4.5% of their skin area is burned. So that's just a way for doctors to help with finding out the severity of certain burns. Okay, does that make sense for you you guys? Any other questions at all? I don't see any, but just keep the questions rolling. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Since there's still quite a few of y'all here, I just wanted to talk about these two slides again, the point system and the flash math tournament. I'm going to send out a poll right now. If you want to stay in the poll, wait a second. How do I even do this? Actually, I'm gonna open up the chat so y'all can talk to each other. Oh, no problem. Thank you guys all for coming to this class. Actually, I don't think I can change the poll. Never mind. But let me know in the chat, like say yes in the chat if you would be interested in attending our Flash Math or like competing for our Flash Math tournament. Yes? Yes, okay. That seems like a lot of yeses. No, maybe. That's all good. Just let me know. Just want to know. Okay. And be sure, remember that we do get do get points for participating in the Flash Math tournament. And also one more thing is, I just want to know, out of these four, Math Counts Nationals, MOP and JMO, Siley Nats, and writing a book, which one would you guys be the most interested in like listening to out of those four? Math Counts Nats, yeah, that's what I thought. Siley Nats, oh, writing a book. Oh wait, I'm seeing a lot of writing in the book. That's making me happy. Okay, Sayoli is also me. Okay, cool. Sayoli Nats, writing a book, cool. For some reason, I can't really do polls right now, which is kind of weird. So I'm just asking you guys through the chat. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of writing the books. So that one will probably be the one we do first. And then I'm also seeing a lot of Sayoli, so we're probably gonna do that one second. And then Math Counts Nats, and then MOP. So yeah. Can I repeat the selections? What do you mean by the selections? These? Oh wait, let me check Q&A. I think there's some extra questions in here. Oh, just someone keep on saying hi and yes. Okay, glad to know you're interested. Oh, I didn't talk about ATP, that's right. But that's because we ran out of time, so I'm so sorry. But basically, you can find a lot of good resources on the sliding filament model. In just Saladin has really good resources for that, Vanders as well. Yeah. Oh my God, stop spamming whoever that is. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming to my class today and staying until this late, basically. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I hope you guys join us for some more classes that we're offering tomorrow and on Sunday. And I hope you guys join and participate in our class, in our points and our tournament. Thank you so much. Bye.